So, welcome to another episode. Today we have Sophia Elan on, who is an author and holistic wellness coach. So, welcome to today's show, Sophia.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what is a holistic wellness coach? Obviously, an author is pretty self explanatory, and we'll come on to talk about your books and things like that. But what is a holistic wellness coach?
My goal in life is actually to make holistic wellness accessible to everyone. So it touches on the emotional, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, so that we're not treating the body as disconnected, but we're appreciating and honoring the interconnectedness of everything. And that to me is the simplest and most effective path to health, happiness, and harmony.
Is that the goal for everyone, as far as you're concerned, to have that inner
It
harmony
is.
with themselves?
It is, and I think that it is way more accessible than most people realize. And I get frustrated with a lot of social media and whatnot coming at us that you have to do, this and have a personal trainer and a nutritionist and or psychologist and all these sorts of things. And so what I'm trying to do is equip individuals with the tools to be able to access health, happiness, and harmony by doing simple daily things that are inexpensive, if not free, honoring the power of our minds and our bodies and harnessing our innate wisdom to be able to achieve that fairly simply. My philosophy is called Kisses and Keep It Simple, Sweetheart. And from my personal experiences, I have found that that is very doable. And at this stage of my life, I am at my healthiest, happiest, most harmonious, fittest from just doing simple daily routines. And I'm really eager to share that with other people so that they can find that path also.
You mentioned the word tools there, and that's the out of everything you said there, the word that sort of I could pick out, and the one that resonated. So, what are some of those tools? Could you say that on social media they say that you need all of these people to help you? You know, your fitness coach and psychologist and all these sort of people that are external to yourself. Is there something then more internal that people can take control of themselves?
It's definitely internal. It's a matter of mindset and then just simple daily rituals, like getting back to basics, getting back to fundamentals. I've been blessed to be living and traveling throughout the Mediterranean for the past couple of decades, and that has definitely given me a much different perspective. I'm American, where I think we kind of overcomplicate things in the quest for simple solutions. So simple things, just like our diet as a noun as opposed to a verb, embrace our food as nourishment and nutrition instead of fearing our food. Connection with self, with others, with nature, physical movement. It doesn't have to be structured exercise. Throughout the Mediterranean, daily, a lot of people will just be getting in a lot of movement from their daily activities. Things like lots of times in the United States, people are so fearful about different classes of macronutrients, which to me, macronutrients are by definition those nutrients we need in large quantities. And by focusing on macronutrients and excluding certain groups of foods, by definition, we're getting micronutrient deficiencies. And I don't think people are focused on that enough. So I really want to change the dialogue from fearing food to embracing food as nourishment so that we get all the nutrients for a healthy weight, for brain health, for energy, for happiness, for gut health, for everything else. And I think that, again, in the quest to make things simple, we've overcomplicated things, and it really does not have to be that way. So just simple things like connection with, again, with nature, with yourself, with people, um, our priorities in life, like living to work versus working to live. It's just a much different culture. And I was really happy to be exposed to that several decades ago. And it really resonated with my soul, embracing simple pleasures instead of focused on, materialism and capitalism. And to me, it just is really the recipe, the prescription, if you will, to health, happiness, and harmony. Doing things that can naturally enhance our feel good neurotransmitters instead of the constant, social media and dopamine chasing. Social media to me is actually antisocial. To me, those kinds of trends are making us more disconnected, which I think that is the antithesis to what leads to health, happiness, and harmony.
Oh, you said a few things there that I 100% agree with, and something that I've discussed. Let's just talk about language first of all. Social media is anti-social media.
Yeah.
Social distancing is anti-social distancing. How can you possibly be social and distant at the same time?
No, I completely agree. And it's funny because, you think about, again, I'm American. So if you have the, running in to get your quick caffeine fix somewhere and running out again versus, in Spain, in Italy, in Turkey, in Greece, in France, you have every day these rituals that are surrounded by, I like to call it like a cafe culture, whether it's, aperitivo in the evening for friends to get together, or cafes, like people will sit all day long at these cafes. You have much more multi-generational support in the United States, for instance. We're kind of kicking kids out of the house when they're 18, and then parents go to a nursing home. Whereas here you have that multi-family generational support, that connection, the connection with people, with family, with friends, with nature. I think that it's an often overlooked element of a Mediterranean lifestyle. Everyone seems to focus on a Mediterranean diet, and with good reason. I think it is ranked, number one year after year for health overall. But it's much more than just the diet; it's the culture, the way of life, and we can all incorporate those kinds of elements in our lives daily. And I think that it would be transformative for most. And it's an inclusive society; it's a connected society versus divisive and disconnected. And I know that there are studies that being disconnected is a serious health risk. I think that there are studies that say that that is more indicative of, morbidity and mortality than like smoking and
Yeah,
obesity
yeah,
put
yeah,
together.
yeah. I've heard that as well. It's being isolated is more damaging for your health than smoking like 20 fags a day or something like that. But
Yes,
yeah, I
it's
think
shocking.
this the thing is there's something called a causation correlation fallacy, which
Mm-hmm.
is that just because something is correlated doesn't mean it causes something. So I love that you said about the Mediterranean diet. Is it just the diet, or is it the fact that, I mean, obviously you can talk about fish oils and all that, or is it the fact that you've got more sunlight, vitamin D? Is it the collectivist nature versus individualism? Is
Oh
it
my
the fact
gosh.
that, is it the fact that you are focusing on serotonin versus dopamine? Because serotonin is the
Long.
joy side, what you get from joy, hugs and love and things like that, as opposed to dopamine fixes, gambling and things like that. So I think that causation correlation, it's a fallacy for a reason.
And I think that it's interesting because even a focus on Mediterranean diet, even when people are talking about that, I think they focus mostly on the macronutrient composition as opposed to the micronutrients. To me, a Mediterranean diet means way more antioxidants, way more phytochemicals. And it's not just the composition of, protein, carbs, fats. That's definitely an element of it, but it's the herbs and spices, it's the beverages, it's the tea, it's the probiotics, it's the prebiotics. And so again, we try to oversimplify things, and I don't think that it's complicated, but I think that we need to understand things on a more fundamental level and quit worrying about macronutrient composition. I cannot stand the fact that dieting it results in undernourishment. At least in America, we are serial sedentary dieters, and it doesn't have to be that way. In every country that I've traveled to, and I used to spend a lot of time in South America too, every country that I've traveled to, food is one of the life's simple pleasures. It is embraced. And it saddens me that one of the main tenets of fundamental health, which is nutrition, is often feared. We have food phobias when that's the opposite of what we should be doing for health, happiness, and harmony. And again, it's not just about weight. The same factors that lead to a healthy weight lead to a healthy, happy life. And we need to stop focusing on those discrete, isolated things. We need to stop outsourcing our health. We need to start being personal advocates for taking charge of how we want to live our lives and not just blindly following people. I know people who will flip-flop between, keto and plant-based and, completely conflicting thoughts without giving any. We need to honor our bodies. We need to honor our common sense. We have a whole lot of sensationalism out there, and we need to get back to sensational information. And if you do that, and if you focus on that, it's not that complicated. And I think that everyone has it within themselves to just harness our innate wisdom of our, the power of our minds, bodies, our souls, and things just could be so much better and so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, with everything comes back to fundamentals, like you said, the word fundamentals. Life's very easy, but it's also very difficult. It's very easy to do something, but it's also very easy not to do something. And I heard something recently that fat people are actually starving.
Overfed,
and it means
undernourished.
Like nutrients, yeah,
overfed, undernourished.
Yeah, exactly.
And that drives me nuts. People get chastised. I cannot stand the simple eat less, move more mantra. It's judgmental. It's not compassionate. If people are struggling with that, it's because of probably psychological reasons. People are confused. They're inundated with information, which is not very helpful. And I just want to cut through the noise and get back to basics. It's interesting. We're supposedly an advanced society, but in so many ways, I think that we're moving backwards.
Yeah, I think that's because of as you said, about the individualist nature and the fact that we are materialistic now, that the food is about convenience now. It's about what's the fastest thing. If I can spend more time smashing my business, working hard, being the grafter, that then, well, instead of getting fresh ingredients, cooking them together and, cooking 3 times a day, I'm going to get a McDonald's because it's going to save me the time and going for this Costa coffee, whatever, getting a muffin or something like that. Actually, is going to save me the time.
Instant gratification. And, and I mean, just to your point, like home cooked meals, what the heck happened to that? I mean, one of my fundamental suggestions for someone who's trying to get healthier would be to cook at home. You control what's happening. I've owned restaurants, and I tried to be very health conscious, but I know what happens in restaurants. No one's going out to restaurants, and increasingly more people are getting their meals outside of the home. And even if they don't do that, then there are all the delivery services to where you don't even have to move and can just get stuff delivered. So you don't even have the social engagement of going out, etc. I mean, the trend's not getting better, and I really, really hope that we go back to basics.
Yeah, I think the thing is, the caveat there is, I think there are, for every bad fast food place and using vegetable like stupid oils and soy and all this crap, there are some really fantastic places with fresh ingredients. But the problem is that to make a margin, those places have to charge quite a bit so then people can't afford to actually eat out of those places all of the time.
Yes, that's actually why my restaurant, didn't succeed, because we really did try to stay to that principle. But it's interesting because now that I'm in the Mediterranean, most of the places I go to, they are really home cooked meals. It is as if you are in someone's home. So it's a much healthier, more sociable experience than it is in like a lot of the chain restaurants, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the big deal with cooking at home. It tastes. I mean, I had a 3 egg omelette earlier with spinach, onions on a sourdough bread.
Sounds delicious.
With parsley and coriander and paprika and all these things in there. And you know what? If it's really good. If you feel good afterwards, and then I'll have probably chicken, rice, onions and stuff for dinner. And do you know what? You feel better because everyone goes through little cycles. You're getting your own little rut, don't you? You'll go through a stage of eating pizza and fast food because for whatever reason you don't have the time, or you just go through a bad stage, don't you? No one's perfect. We're on here saying certain things, but it doesn't mean that we're perfect in any way, shape or form. But you have to pull yourself back from these bad habits, bad cycles, because you can change a habit. That habit can be formed, it can be broken, a new habit can be formed,
Yes, for instance, one of my books is called Eat the Cupcake, in recognition of the fact that, once in a while we're going to do stuff that's like for pure pleasure. When I eat a cupcake, I don't think I'm doing it for nourishment. I'm doing it for pleasure. And that's okay. Like, I'm not stressed about it. Stressing about food, I think, is the worst thing that we can do. And the example that you just gave of what you ate, Like that's perfect and it's simple and it's easy. And even like what you mentioned, like the parsley and the coriander. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of those little things. I'm like a kitchen sink cook. Like I know seed oils get a bad rep, but like seeds themselves are really important. So I use like flax seeds and chia seeds and poppy seeds and parsley for vitamin C and diuretic, and we can really impact our lives substantially by adding those little things into our nutrition instead of
Yeah.
like constantly dieting as a verb.
Yeah, I think as well though, diet's a very, very nuanced part of life. Some people will adamant and they'll have evidence, scientific evidence and physical evidence that they went on a carnivore diet that was perfect for them. You have other people go on a
Mm.
pure vegetarian diet and it's perfect for them. Other people will go on like a pescatarian diet and it works wonders for them. So I always say that the fundamentals are key in terms of like these are good ingredients, but also you need to find your own way within those ingredients that suit you best as well.
The problem that I have with those diets is that I think that everyone's focus is on weight loss. So yes, maybe those things give you different weight loss. And I think if you're focused on limiting certain things, and if you're doing any of those, a lot of times you're not eating like processed, unwhole food. So theoretically, it probably is going to help you lose weight. But what's the long-term effect?
Yeah, sorry, not
Again,
not just weight though, as in shape and the
well, I
like
wonder
if
the
people's
long-term effects
diabetic,
of
for
that.
example, because carbohydrates turn to sugar, don't they, when they're consumed. So if someone's diabetic, they're probably better off not having any carbs.
I wouldn't go down that path. And I know a lot of studies where if you have equivalent, it's calories in, calories out at the end of the day. I think the big thing that we're missing in society is the calories out part. A lot of people seem like they would rather starve, and have very restricted diets in terms of calories as well as food groups as opposed to movement. And regular physical activity, again, doesn't have to be something like structured. It doesn't have to be going to a gym. I don't belong to a gym. I don't have a personal trainer. I don't count calories. I don't count steps. And I'm at my healthiest because I just use common sense. We need regular physical activity. Our bodies are meant to move. And anyone who is blessed with mobility should be doing that for brain health, for bone health, for mood, for gut health, for everything. And so I get really frustrated when people would really rather, like, I love food. I would much rather have what I want to eat. And again, like I have a really good diet, more or less, but also regular physical activity. I get up in the morning, I start doing jumping jacks. We have our lymphatic system, which doesn't have a pump like our cardiovascular system. Without movement, that's not getting any flow. And that is our fat processing system. I just think that people are so focused on food when they should look at ourselves holistically. And that's my real draw to holistic wellness, because no one's perfect. No one's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, but I try to advance my health in all these different realms, which actually makes it relatively simple because you don't have to be pristine. If you're getting it right most of the time, you can have, slips and whatnot. But it's a combination of things. It's not just macronutrients, it's micronutrients, it's moving, it's gut health, it's mood, it's like you said, sunshine, connection, everything else. It's a cumulative lifestyle. And I really hope that people start focusing more on that. It's very pleasurable, It's very pleasurable when you do it that way, as opposed to being restrictive and stressed, and having food phobias, which to me seems unbelievably miserable.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the physical side, haven't we? First of all, we've talked
Mm-hmm.
about diet and exercise, but are there more intangible ways that this wellness holistically can be achieved by many, if not all?
It's interesting. I'm surprised actually we talked about the physical so much because I'm more of like a mental health, mental well-being, mindset. And I think that a lot of people don't realize when they are struggling with the physical side, a lot of it is because of the mental. Like I was diagnosed, I had a lot of unresolved traumas throughout my life. And I was misdiagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, food allergies, esophagitis. I was told that I needed, back surgery, etc. It was all because of my mental issues. It was all psychosomatic. And so, again, to the holistic wellness theme, I think that that's overlooked, and the focus, to your point, it's like the focus on the physical, the diet, the weight is taking too much attention away from like our minds, and how that can be impactful in terms of how we live our lives.
So, what are some psychological ways that you can improve your harmony internally? And because I know you mentioned that you come from trauma previously, you've obviously moved from the States to now living in the Mediterranean. Are there some tangible or experiential from your side ways that you can use your mind to help you move forward?
Yeah, I think to the extent that we have, if we have pain, if we have ailments, if we have bad dreams, if we have anxiety, those things are all symptoms of something underlying. We tend to, if we're repressing or suppressing emotions and mental things, it gets embodied, and that can result in a lot of nagging ailments as well as diseases. Chronic stress is actually, I think, um, accounts for like 85% of doctors' visits. And yet we're not dealing with the chronic stress. We're giving prescriptions to deal with whatever those symptoms are. And so to me, coming to terms with the underlying psychological issues that are being embodied physiologically, that is a key step to becoming healthier and more harmonious. And I definitely experienced that. I had deep rooted negative limiting beliefs that were manifesting in my behaviors and in my physiology. And so through self awareness, I became very familiar with those and started tackling those in different ways. One of the things that I've done is something called heart coherence and also hypnotherapy, because we can do affirmations all day long. And if we don't believe in it in our bodies, it's not going to make a difference. And so both hypnotherapy and heart coherence are ways that I have embraced to be able to align my physiology and my psychology to be truly, profoundly happy and in harmony.
Yeah, I think that especially with the physical and mental, the coherence is definitely there, and it's the whole, does the tail wag the dog or does the dog wag the tail? Are you ill because you're stressed, or are you stressed because you're ill?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's
Vicious cycle.
yeah, it's one of those things that it's difficult to look at which way around it is. Are you stressed because you are ill, or are you becoming ill because you are stressed? And
Vicious cycle,
yeah,
for
so
sure.
I think that sometimes it can be the other end of the scale that you need to work on. If you're feeling fuzzy upstairs and you're stressed out, maybe you need to have the physical side. And maybe if you've got physical pains, maybe it's the mental side that you're not quite getting right.
And I think that's why we really need to take, I get very frustrated with modalities that treat our minds and bodies as disconnected, because we're so interconnected. We have our gut brain, we have our heart brain, we have our brain, and even within our brain, we have like, three different parts, like the thinking part, the emotional part, and the primal part. And one of the things that helped me the most was heart coherence, because generating positive emotions in our heart can translate to signals to our brain. We have a bidirectional communication between our brains and our hearts. And I think a lot of us think of like top down, brains command central, whereas like 85% of the messages in between our body, or in between our brains and our bodies, is coming from the heart to the brain. So if you can, it's deceptively simple. And I love holistic wellness being accessible, and we all have a heart. So if you can generate positive feelings and emotions in your heart, that can translate to brain coherence, which is just phenomenal and has amazing results because it helps your whole brain. It's like, being the maestro of your own symphony. And then you can have in sync your body, your mind, and you can have optimal performance of your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, your hormonal system. And again, I think that these are the things that we need to focus on, whether we're, eating too many carbs or if we should be carnivore or whatever it is. That's too isolated. Again, we overcomplicate things by trying to simplify it. And it can be really simple, but we just have to broaden our perspective, broaden our horizon, take responsibility for our own health, mental and physical, and start using common sense instead of sensationalism.
I think the problem is though is cognitive bias. People have cognitive bias in respect of whatever they believe, they will search and find information that backs that up. So for me, for someone to want to change, they have to be willing to get rid of all of the beliefs that they currently hold and look at something with a blank slate. Because you can type in anything you want. You can type in online, I don't know, eating meat every day is good for you, and you'll find loads of articles
Oh,
that prove
oh
right. And then
God,
you
yes.
also you can type in eating meat every day is bad for you, and you'll get
Oh, for
articles about
sure.
cholesterol and things like that. So
For
I think it
sure.
depends on what you're putting in the search engine of the mind as well, in
And
that
I
respect of what
and
you're
I
trying to get.
and I think that people that's why people have to start taking responsibility for their own health instead of outsourcing that. Like our health should be the last thing that we're outsourcing, mental, physical. My so from my delving into research for healing my trauma, I realized how destructive chronic stress is. Figuratively, literally, it's killing us. And so again, I realized how that affected like people trying to achieve a healthy weight, brain health, etc. I have like 100 pages of reference in my diet book, and I didn't want to do a diet book, but I realized that trauma and chronic stress was infiltrating that situation so much. And I was really tired of people non-compassionately saying, eat less, move more, without understanding why people aren't doing that. Why aren't they doing that? There are psychological reasons behind that. And just telling people to do that is not going to help them. It's going to stress them more. It's going to make them feel bad about themselves, etc. So I think, again, we have to really understand, what motivates us, what things that we want to change. And if we can start doing that self introspection instead of just outsourcing, worrying about others' opinions, looking for external validation, it's all within us. And there's a lot of good information. And yes, there is bias when you research, but you have to realize what is it that you want to search for. It's not as subjective if you start identifying what it is that you want. And like you said, with your beliefs. So my entire life, I had negative limiting beliefs, and I definitely had to address those before I opened up my mind to finding, my path to healing and harmony. So there's a whole lot of mindset, there's a whole lot of bias. But if there's something that you want to change, I would challenge people to identify that and then try to start exploring what that is. To the extent someone is struggling with weight issues, with anxiety, again, those are symptoms. And so we have to delve in deep and understand the source of that. And then we can target finding information that will be helpful to us.
Isn't it a case though as well? Like instead of saying, well, actually, this is why this happened in the past. Instead of saying, well, this is where I am, forget the past. Now it's a case of what I need to do now to change something in future. And actually, it's not about how I feel. It's about doing something despite how I feel.
Oh, that's a really good point. Carl Jung says, we're not what happened to us, we are what we choose to become. And I think you just actually encapsulated my entire life. I had to figure out my why of moving forward, what I wanted to embrace, what I wanted to be different. I was always relatively happy, but I was just kind of biding time. I'm like, this isn't me. And so like I used my intellect, I used a lot of philosophical movements to get past where I was to where I wanted to be. It I think introspection is underrated. Introspection and personal advocacy for our own health. Because if we do those two things, I think that everyone has within their power, which is very liberating and empowering, the ability to change to whatever they want. If you're not happy with how things are going, you need to understand why, you need to understand the origin, and then you can have a path forward if you apply yourself and if you're disciplined. But don't just blindly listen to people who have no idea what your circumstances are or what your goals are. That's kind of the definition of lunacy.
100%. And there's a fine line as well between doing the same thing over and over again because you are persistent and making it work, but also doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I
The
think
definition of insanity.
there's balance there though as well. And yeah, it's good looking at the past. You know, if you're a business and seeing what happened last year that didn't go so well,
Learnings.
it's great because you have to be able to problem, to identify problems and what were the reasons behind getting where you are today. But in terms of focus, you shouldn't extend the pain longer than you need to. You've had that pain now for 5 years, 10 years. There's no point in keep thinking about that pain over and over again for the next 10 years and extending it beyond the life that you had. Like, for example, I've got two dogs. The dogs are probably going to die at some point. My parents will probably die and things like that. And I know that's going to happen, but there's no point in me extending that pain today and thinking about my dog dying in 4 years' time, 5 years, because
Oh my
I'm
gosh, yes.
extending the pain. So
Right.
instead, you
Yes.
should look forward and say, okay, what should I be doing today? It's not about the harvest that you receive today. It's about the seeds that you plant. People to this, and I'm going to go on a little bit ranty. Every day, people look at, okay, what have I got today? I didn't win the lottery. I didn't get any clients. I didn't do this. I didn't get that. I didn't get that. Forget that. Don't worry about what you're getting. Worry about the things that you're planting. Okay, I was on a podcast today. I read a book today. I listened to a podcast that's going to help me in 6 months' time. I applied to a job. Think about what you're planting because that will be your future harvest. Instead of thinking about, oh, what am I collecting harvest today? Think about your future self, the future harvest for the future man or woman by planting today. And sometimes you don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes it's raining, it's stormy outside, and you don't feel like planting. But actually, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. You have to do it, and because you're going to be the same person who complains about the fact that you've not got a pot to piss in later on. And look, I'm not saying that just because you work hard, just because you have ideas, that it's all going to work out fine. Life isn't fair like that. But you still have to try, and at least try and elevate yourself, whether it's through the diet, as you said, whether it's through actually exercising, whether it's through understanding your own psychology, as you said, and maybe it's your whole philosophy, holistic wellness, being encompassing all of those things that are all aiming in the right direction. Because a fleet can only travel as fast as the slowest vessel, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And if your slowest vessel is the fact that you're 150 kilos overweight, you can never succeed in other parts of your life. If you go for a job interview and you're 150 kilos overweight, they're not going to give you the job because they will think, well, if he can't manage that side of his life, why do we want to manage? So it all fits together. Everything matters. How you look matters. How you smell matters. How you talk matters. What you're doing at work, outside of work matters. And I think it's great that you're encompassing that holistically with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a difference between insights and ruminations. And, like when you said, like, your dogs are going to die or whatever, it makes perfect sense. And oftentimes when I'm struggling with things, I try to use my intelligence to overcome things. So does it make sense right now? Like if you think about and worry about that, then you're reliving that, multiple times unnecessarily. And I liked your word elevate. But you also almost brought tears to my eyes when you're talking about like someone who's overweight who goes to a job interview. I'm so sick of people who are trying to define, you have to stop defining your worth from external people. No one is worth their weight. No one's worth is their weight. No one's worth should be defined by external validation. And I've lived my life as a complete consummate people pleaser. And I'm so over that. And I so help people be over that, because it's ludicrous to me that we live our lives for anyone else, that other people's opinions matter to us more than our own. And if you're struggling with things, I feel like those things are messengers, gentle messengers, symptoms of things that you can, change and you can do differently. And, you need to find your tribe. You need to find your kind, gentle tribe. You need to, if social media is stressing you out, if you're comparing and despairing, dear God, get off of it. I'm so glad I'm not growing up now in this environment, because it does seem overwhelming. It seems like bullying and caustic comments and everything else. And we just need to realize our own self-worth. And I think we need to move. I want us all to be connected, but in a healthy way, and internalize, look inwards instead of outwards. Do not define yourself from strangers. Someone else's opinion that you do not know should not matter more than your own. Be kinder, be gentler. And it's a very challenging environment. And yet I think that, we can do this, we can conquer this, but we have to have the right mindset to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that as a species, we do need to empathise with people and understand that we're all going through
Empathy.
problems. We're all going through problems, and actually, if you were to put your problems in a pile with everyone else's, you'd probably take yours back in an instant, as they say, because everyone's going through problems. But the problem is no one should be judged by their weight, etc. But that's an idea. For me, there's an idealistic how things should be and how things actually are. People do have a prejudice. People do prejudge, whether it's that or something else. And it's up to us to put ourselves in a position that, yes, we shouldn't fear being judged by others. Yes, we shouldn't be scared of what others think of us. Yes, we shouldn't be judged or judge ourselves based on what others perceive us to be. But there is a self-worth and how we perceive ourselves, and there's also a market value of what we're perceived at. And there has to be a level of coherence between the two. I could say to myself, look, I'm the most worthy guy in the whole world. But I go out there and market value wise, let's say relationship wise, let's say job wise, let's say fitness wise, I'm not the fittest, let's say. I'm not the most attractive, I'm not the richest, I'm not the best in the dating pool. So there has to be some benchmark that we measure ourselves at and against, as well as the fact that we need to be happy within ourselves. Because there's no point in being good on the external benchmark, but have inner turmoil, inner lack of harmony, as you said. So I think that's where there has to be an element of balance there.
Well, it's interesting because I know you have podcasts on Nietzsche and the Ubermensch, and I like to aspire more to that philosophy versus outsourcing our validation to others. And this is coming from someone who outsourced her validation her entire life externally, and that did not lead to. I've always been happy, but that did not lead to my most authentic, fulfilled life by doing that. And so I'm at a point in my life to where, I want to be the cheerleader to worrying about, what makes you happy, what makes you feel worthy, etc. So I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. I think with the Ubermensch, Nietzsche, Superman, Overman, whatever you want to call it, is that you need to create your own values, your own morality. And actually, the world's expectations shouldn't define you, and that's actually what can hold you back, is essentially what you're saying. And coming to your point, a lot of the time we are trying to conform to ideas that others have put forward because you fear being judged by them, and that shouldn't be the case. A lot of the most successful people in history and those that have created huge change are those that didn't let the expectations of the world and society hold them back. They charted their own course. If there's a path in front of you, you're on someone else's path in some respects, because obviously someone's left a path for you. Sometimes we need to follow our own path and leave a trail.
One of my favorite words is extra hyphen ordinary. Ordinary is so taken. A lot of people and I think a lot of children feel like they're different and they struggle with that. And I really like to look at that word extraordinary. Ordinary is taken. Like, forge your own path. Forge your own path. Like, it's also like, if you feel like your world's upside down, who's to say that upside down, isn't better than right side up? So I just hope that people can start to harness, their own self. Again, as someone who did not have that my entire life, I now find that ludicrous that we would live our lives subjugated to someone else, prioritizing someone else's needs. Like, there's a whole epidemic of people pleasing, which is not good for individuals or for society. So I try to look at things intellectually, objectively, and I want to be an Ubermensch, which historically I probably would have thought was like, I don't know, selfish, but I think we should all be more selfish, not in a derogatory way, but like, if you're not looking out for yourself, no one else is.
Yeah,
And
100%.
yeah,
It's the thing is, as humans, we have this psyche that, and this is why get rich quick schemes do sell and things like that, because we want a path to follow. We have that uncertainty. This step got to here,
yes,
this step got to here, this step got to here. But actually, those same people are the ones that blaze their own trail, and now they're successful. You come back, well, how did you do that, sir? Oh, well, actually, I did this and I did that, and they want to follow that step, but it's not going to work for you in that same way. I love as well the fact that you said about being selfish. I also made a podcast about egoism, which is basically saying that you should focus on doing the best for you, not at the detriment of anyone else, but actually to elevate other people.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I love that. That's exactly my philosophy. That's
Egoism.
exactly my philosophy.
That's it.
And that's, I'm like, I aspire to certain Buddhism fundamentals, but what you just said is like spot on for me. Spot on.
It's called egoism. So it's basically saying, well, actually, if you focus on doing the best for you, it's going to transpire to be the best for everyone else as well. So
yes,
you're going to earn more. You're going to have brought up better kids. You're going to live in the best place possible. Your town and your road is going to be better than it was before. You're going to be in a better place as a psychologically. So it's not and it's not at the detriment of other people. That's
right. It's a compassionate egoism, and it raises everyone up.
Yeah,
raise yourself up to raise everyone else.
Yeah, because it's better for you as well to be like that, if that makes sense. Because if you're an aggressive person, it might benefit you short term, but it doesn't. It's still not an overall net benefit in some respects. So it's quite nuanced, really. But it's just a general idea.
Love nuances
as to what you should be like. But I think there's, as you said earlier, it's not just one thing. There's so many things out there that you can pick things from and say, actually, I like this part of egoism, I like this part of Buddhism, I like this part of Stoicism. I'm not going to encompass the whole thing together as one and tie myself to that and be validated by calling myself one of those by external measures. But actually there is lessons and wisdom from each of those philosophies or
precisely
whatever. And
yes,
blaze your own trail, because at the end of the day,
blaze your own trail.
Those philosophies and those religions came from a collection of previous things and got a name, and then people will say, "Oh, I'm that thing," but then a new guy will come out and make a collection, and then, "Oh, I'm that thing." But so you're telling me that you believe someone else with every single thing they've ever done or ever said? I'm not sure that truthfully people deep down feel like that, even though they might say that. I don't think deep down people actually believe that. They think that maybe there's an ulterior benefit at the end. So I think just be truthful to yourself and what your beliefs are. If someone doesn't agree with it, fuck it. Say what? That's
oh my gosh, yes.
Makes life fun.
Individual spirituality. I mean, like, I don't believe in, there's so many things that I aspire to and I want to learn about. And yeah, I don't even agree with all the fundamental basics of the things that I believe in. So I'm creating my own philosophy. I'm creating my own life. And as you said, like, you take those things and you elevate. And to me, it's like the individual spirituality. Don't take what's spoon fed to you, make it your own, which to me is empowering, liberating.
This comes back to one of your initial points, right? And something I said the other day as well. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's just take the premise that you're an Abrahamic religion and you're Christian, whatever. So you're telling me that God wants you to go to church, a man-made structure that you sit on and listen to the same poem repeated over and over. So it was very cultish in some respects. Rather than go and, let's say you've got to pray, meditate, whatever, in nature, which is God's church. Which of those is going to be more beneficial to you? I think so.
I'm preaching nature.
Yeah, it just makes me laugh. Like that,
it's one of the things about the Mediterranean to me, like the experience, the relationship that I have with nature is the greatest blessing I have to be here. It is transformative on a daily basis. I'm someone who embraces the sunrise, the sunset, the sea, the ground, the earth. And again, someone who's had a fairly traumatic, past. I'm delusionally happy. Like, as in, I don't need a reason to be happy. Happiness is the reason. Life is the reason. Life is a celebration. And so like those things, like nature, to your point, I feel like if everyone embraced that, the world would be a different place.
Yeah, I think with the number of people though in the world, it's in some ways good that not everyone is in it, because a lot of people just stay in the big concrete jungles, and actually then when you go to the countryside, like I go hiking a lot.
Hiking.
There's not that many people, go up mountains and stuff. If everyone was to do it, nature would then not be the same.
It would not be exactly.
So
exactly.
So yeah,
we'll keep it as a secret job.
Yeah, in some ways, it's good that not everyone is screwed on. And that's not a bad thing to say. It's not the ego or something I said. It's but yeah, it's definitely it is beneficial. I think it's beneficial anyway. But some people just don't like that at all. They're like, oh, I can't think of anything worse than walking uphill for 5 hours and walking in mud. I just want to sit and fine. That's each to their own, and that's your prerogative, really.
Exactly, each to his own.
Yeah, but I know you've written some books as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about the books and series and stuff like that?
So I did a memoir called War, Prime for Peace, and that's an uplifting memoir about overcoming traumas. It's very raw and vulnerable because I always say I'm sorry, healing doesn't happen in happiness. That was Freudian. Healing doesn't happen in silence or solitude. And then that transpired into holistic wellness guides, brain health, weight loss, mastering the art of stress. And then my favorite thing is my novel series, which is called Happily Ever Now. And it's like a protagonist's embracing of happily ever now within herself as opposed to the fairy tale romance. And it goes across various Mediterranean countries: Italy, Spain, Greece, France, Montenegro, Turkey, which also includes kind of like the things that we've been talking about with the culture and the philosophical movements.
So, did you find it difficult to? Because I'm using that from my own experience as well of being an author. It's quite difficult to try and perceive the psyche and character arc of an individual in a way that the reader can understand it, and that it's not too boring as well.
I was blessed because my novel series is based on my life. So honestly, it kind of flowed and it was very cathartic. All my books have been very cathartic. The memoir was cathartic. The fictional series is very cathartic and is like my real life journey processing through different philosophical movements and artistic movements and different cultural insights. And then I really felt empowered by the holistic wellness guides because I deeply had felt the impacts physiologically, psychologically of like stress and traumas. And so it's really my heartfelt way of trying to help other people understand that they can overcome these challenges and the impacts that they can have. So like as a child, I was into creative writing and I was always like, oh, who's going to want to ever read anything, that I say? And so I've come a long way. I'm a really introverted person. And so the fact that I'm writing books has been a huge part of my personal transformation and growth because I want to share my insights. I'm trying to turn my pain into my passion, my mess into my messages. So it's been very like I would love to just write, honestly. I have so many books in me. I have endless books in me.
Yeah, it's the old imposter syndrome, isn't it? At the start, it's like fucking hell, who's going to listen
Yeah.
to me? Who am I to even try and attempt this? And who's going to take my word as gospel? Whatever you're going to think of, it's one of the natural human fears, isn't it?
Yes, and I do, I do believe that if as long as we have in our heart, like pure passion and trying to help people, that's like what has motivated me. Like I said, healing doesn't happen in silence or solitude. I've called, like, I love the Vanquish podcast title. I've called myself the Naked Conqueror, sharing raw and vulnerability to try to help light others' paths. Everyone's journey is going to be unique, but I love the vanquish and I love the conqueror insofar as it denotes overcoming, to become our authentic, fullest, happiest selves. And I think that, sharing these stories I think you used the word trailblaze before.
Yeah.
I've always been one for inspirational heroes like Nelson Mandela and Helen Keller and the Dalai Lama, and not to compare myself to them by any stretch of the imagination, but by sharing's caring, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just want things for nothing. Oh, I want to be a millionaire. I want to win the lottery. I want to
Oh
just
gosh,
be.
I've been
But
married to those people.
the problem is, right, is like you can't have both. We all know people who were sort of just given wealth, and when you speak to them, you're like, oh yeah, they've not gone through this, they've not gone through it. There's a disparity between what they've earned and who they are as a character. So if you have kids, for example, and they ask for sweets, you might give them sweets, but if they keep asking every day for sweets, chocolate, you're gonna at some point say it's not good for you for me to keep giving you what it is you want. You need to have some element of restriction, so that you don't become worse later on. You
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
be
character and
given.
integrity. Like, so I had all the outward trappings of success as a corporate lawyer. I was married for, almost a decade, no, over a decade. Um, Corporate lawyer, financial reward, etc. And I just, it was soul sucking for me. It was soul sucking for me. So, you really had to find your inner strength, your inner passion, your inner peace. And that's why the Ubermensch like really speaks to me, to not fall for the trappings of society. And that's why I like call my novel series like a cross between Under the Tuscan Sun or Eat, Pray, Love combined with The Graduate, because there was like a visceral reaction to materialism and capitalism. And now I'm like completely embraced with the simple pleasures in life. And if you find beauty in the everyday things, you'll always have beauty. You'll always have pleasure. That to me is very empowering and liberating.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons people enjoy going on holiday. I think is that you're doing something out of your normal experience. Okay, let's just um, um, address the elephant in the room. A lot of people do go on the same holidays. They stay in one resort and just stay there. Okay,
Oh my gosh.
I'm ignoring those idiots, but on the face of it, it's just that point of exploration. You don't know what's coming next. It's fun.
Magic happens in the
It's exciting.
uncertainty.
Sorry.
Magic happens in the uncertainty.
Exactly, and that's a metaphor for what you said about the movement. She's going against the cultural norms of society, and in this example, it's the cultural norms of society is your general life. You're getting up, doing the same thing every day. That is not good for you, by the way. If you're doing good stuff, that's different. It's soul sucking. It's you junk food, blah blah blah. And then when you go on holiday, it's something completely different, and you feel alive. And then as soon as you come back home, it's the same running on the treadmill. So there must be a way to try and break that, and you can be the early instigator of that as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear so many people who say like, "Oh, I go on holiday," and they try to like blame America. They're like, "Oh, I go on holiday, and the food's better, and I'm eating better, and I feel better, and I come back to the United States, I feel terrible." And I'm like, "Okay, Well, like, what were you eating on holiday? Were you moving more? Were you exploring? All these things can be translated to wherever you are. You don't have to be in the Mediterranean to incorporate these things into your daily life. If it matters to you, like, start advocating for yourself. Don't outsource your happiness. Don't outsource your health. Don't blame food manufacturers. You don't have to eat stuff in the United States if you don't want to. You can have the same experiences that you had on vacation. You can move, you can be less stressed, you can be doing all these things. And so people just need to really embrace the empowering fact that they can be who they want, which is, to me, like, I don't know what I would have thought about Ubermensch before, but I think everyone should embrace that. I'm completely enthralled and obsessed with that concept.
I think it's about accountability though as well, isn't it? It's like
Oh, yes.
people put blame, saying, like, coming to what you just said a
Oh,
second ago.
yes.
Oh well, I've got friends who twist my arm and they make me do things. Oh well, in this country there's loads of McDonald's just on every corner, but you don't have to engage with that. You don't have to
Right.
engage with any of that.
Right. Right. And if you want to, go ahead. But, like, don't blame McDonald's if you go to McDonald's. Like, no one's going to I mean, no offense to McDonald's, but don't blame them if you're going there. Don't blame the food manufacturers. Like, in America, I don't know what percentage it is, but it's a really scary percentage. The percentage of people's diets is ultra processed food. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be in Italy to not eat that. So own it. Own it. And if you own it, life can be freaking beautiful.
Yeah, and exactly. Yes, there might be less places for you to consume
Less
good food,
temptations.
but yeah, exactly. But there are. I could probably tell me where you live. I can find probably something within 2 miles of your house that is good, healthy, fresh, and decent price.
Oh, yes.
If you're not cooking from home, by the way,
Right. Yes.
So
And, like, yeah, cook from home. Like, quit blaming the food manufacturers or the fast food people. And, we need to, if you take accountability, it's pretty easy. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Keep it simple, sweetheart.
yeah, you're the only one who can make a change.
For sure. Like you said, like, we talked about habits earlier, and habits, like, I had, when I was writing holistic wellness guides, and that's what prompted me to write my memoir, because I was like, I have really bad habits. Like, I'm trying to preach what I'm practicing, but I'm being kind of hypocritical because I have the overhang of, traumas that I need to resolve. And so, like, I owned that. I owned that, and I changed that. And I think that we should all be incredibly grateful and blessed by the fact that we have such amazing minds, bodies, and spirits. If we focus inwards, like, let's stop focusing outwards. Let's stop externalizing everything and start internalizing everything. And it's not so difficult if you do that. No matter what's happened to you, you own that. And, like, the philosophical movements that you talk about, like, Stoicism, etc. There are ways relatively easily that if we really want to change, we can. And I invite everyone to start exploring those things and stop outsourcing your health, your happiness, and your harmony,
The thing is,
because you have it within you.
your external environment can be an extension of your internal environment, though. Like, if you live in a messy room and it's always messy, your mind's probably messy. If you
Oh,
are
yes.
if you eat shit and you're overweight and consistently overweight, you do exercise, maybe you're a greasy a greedy lazy person, possibly. And that's, even if you're not, even if there's, let's say you've got some underlying thyroid issue or something that you're aware of, other people don't see. They just see and they make an assumption. Okay, he's probably he's not got any hygiene or whatever. So although we shouldn't be, be fear what other people think of us, there is an element of, if you want to get what you can from life in terms of the best possible way, people do have to appreciate you and like you and all these other things to get as far as you possibly can. I think you have to be
I
able to demonstrate that you are competent as an individual.
I think that we have to start turning inwards more than outwards and understand why the things that we are struggling with, why we are, so we can actually attack the source. Like these things are symptoms. Um, they are symptoms. And until you turn inwards, like there's a whole lot of social media about narcissistic relationships, and everyone's like blaming the narcissist. And you can do that from here till kingdom come. And I had a rainbow of relationships with narcissists. And I'm like, okay, what's the common denominator? It's me. Quit turning outwards, quit blaming. And narcissists are people too, and we need to have compassion. They had traumas, etc. But there was the quote, one of my turning moments was, stop asking, stop blaming the clowns for being clowns. Ask why you keep going to the circus. And you're not going to change unless you turn inwards. Like quit. There's so much stress and trauma that's externally focused, and you're not going to get anywhere, in my opinion, if you do that. You need to turn inwards and figure out why you're doing the things that you're doing. In my bad relationships, I was the common denominator, so I needed to address why I was in those bad relationships. Not that it was like say la vie or happenstance that I was in those bad relationships. So we need to own our healing, we need to own our advocacy, and if we do that, I feel like we can astronomically quickly have much better lives.
This is it, and I suppose you were lucky that out of the dark triad traits, narcissism is the least worst, I think, as opposed to psychopathy and Machiavellianism. But maybe that's a separate conversation. So, is there anything that you want to say that we've maybe not talked about?
I think, I just wish that people would have, realize that happiness is within. It's not dictated by an external factor. If you can cultivate it, then it's not going to be taken from an external, a person, a circumstance, an event, or a tragedy. And I think that there are so many modalities for people to heal and be healthier and be harmonious for free and accessible. And I would encourage people to explore that. And I'm always welcoming people to reach out to me because, again, like life has not been, rainbows and lollipops for me. And yet I live my life as such. And so it's all about like the mindset and holistic healing. And I believe that everyone can live the rest of their lives as the best of their lives if they really put themselves towards that.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in duty. You have a duty to try and get things right. You've got a duty to yourself, you've got a duty to society, you've got a duty to your parents, to your kids, whatever. So if maybe you're struggling, sometimes just don't think about yourself and for yourself think about, do you know what, I'm going to do it for something else. Even if that helps you to get that spark, anything, just any way that you can reframe something to give yourself motivation.
And I feel that way. Like I feel like I'm turning my pain into passion, but I do want to also say that healing does not happen in silence or solitude. And anyone who's struggling, like they are not alone. There are resources, there are connections, etc. So please don't give up and look out for those resources. And I'm happy to be one of those.
Yeah, where can people reach out to you?
Probably the best would be my website, mediterraneanme.org.
And can they get the books and things on there as well?
Yes.
Perfect. Any final comments?
Be happy, smile. Like we have this bi-directional communication between our brains and our bodies, and we smile when we're happy, but if we smile, we also make ourselves feel happy. So it's like the simplest thing. If anyone's struggling, just smile, keep it for a couple minutes and you'll start feeling happier.
Love it. Thanks again.
Thank you.